What's up, people? Peace. What's good? What's good? What's good? It's your man Timmhotep in the place to be. What's good? How y'all feeling? Hello, hello, hello. This is gonna be Sound Check today. AFROPUNK's interview series. I'm waiting for this person who just joined to join. Nubya Garcia is her name. Let's give it a second. What's up, people? How y'all doing? Let me see if this request is good. Hello, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm positive. How are you feeling on this Friday in July? I just want to get your vibe right now. Let's do a vibe check.
I'm feeling good. I'm feeling excited for more music to come. I'm feeling okay. I'm good.
You're over there glowing. Are you in London right now?
Thank you. Yeah, I'm in sunny London. It's not really sunny today, but yeah. No, London.
I am in New York City, and it's definitely not sunny here. From the looks of things, are you in the studio or what?
Yeah, I'm in a studio today.
Okay. For those who don't know, I'm Timmhotep. This is Sound Check with AFROPUNK, and today's guest is Nubya Garcia, a very accomplished saxophonist from London who I've been a fan of at least since I've known about her, maybe like the past 5-6 years.
Wow.
Yeah. So we'll get into that, but let me do the intro thing. She has her new song Source is out for everyone who is into jazz. Even if you're not into jazz, you need to tap in because what she's doing is, I feel, very much transcendent of just the genre itself. And it's very reflective of, I don't know, how cool fucking London is, I must say. And she's here with us to talk about her new record coming out, which is also titled Source, right? So yeah, man. Great to see you.
Exciting. Good to be here. Thank you for having me.
I want to start by just talking about really big kind of broad things. Like, I'm a New Yorker, native New Yorker, lived here my entire life, broadcasting from here right now. And when I think about places that have culture, that have taste, I think about New York City. I could big up my own chest from my own city. But then I was talking to some of my friends yesterday and I was like, where would I move that had good taste, where people were making dope shit and doing dope things? And London came to mind, right? So tell me about London as you see it, being a person who's literally from there, and give people who are not from there a glimpse of all of these kind of cross-pollinating cultures that make London what it is.
Yeah, sure. Yes, I'm London born and bred. Grew up in Camden Town. And then I moved to Southeast when I was like 20 for university. And I think now that I've traveled around the world a little bit, I'm so thankful that I grew up in London with such a beautiful mix of people, and the diversity in London is actually something that I haven't seen in many places around the world. When I've had those like times where like maybe I'll move somewhere, maybe I'll go and check out another city or whatever, like I'm constantly thinking about that. But then having traveled and coming home, the first thing I noticed, like even when I'm in the airport, is that, oh man, like London is so diverse. It's full of so many different types of people. The schools that I went to were like, when I was a kid, it was stuff like kind of diverse, not too diverse, but the wider culture scene in London, people come to London to, feel that sense of culture, feel the art, go and see all kinds of things. Like, I think Londoners actually take it for granted, and so do most people who live in hotspots of culture around the world. I think I have been guilty of it, and I like to recognize that we're lucky, we're fortunate. I grew up with many different types of people around me, cementing my own culture as well. I grew up with Notting Hill Carnival, and my family, like, it just, it's home. I do love it.
Where's your family originally from? Are they from London originally, or the Caribbean, or the continent, or where?
So my mom is from Guyana, which is in the Caribbean, and also the north end of
South
Latin
America.
America.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and my dad is from Trinidad, but he was born here. My mom left Guyana when she was 17, 18 and came to London to study, as her father was already over here. And yeah, that's kind of it in a nutshell.
See, part of the reason I ask about that is because I was listening to Source when it dropped, and what struck me about it is like the way it comes in with Caribbean rhythms, and then as it progresses, it becomes this kind of spiritual jazz, like really expansive thing, and there's a dance element to it, and like it made me wonder about your origins and how all this cross pollination of culture is happening just literally in that song. What's what, 7 minutes, maybe a little bit over 7 minutes, right?
It's actually like 12 minutes.
You know what's funny? It doesn't feel that, it's crazy because I zone out to that song, right? So it doesn't feel like it's 12 minutes, like the side of a record, right? But tell me about that song. Tell me about Source as a song title and what the inspiration was behind combining all these different elements to make this really expansive, grand song that covers all these different bases.
Thank you. So I guess the first thing about me that is I find really important is that like I love jazz like so much. That was, you know, I was into it as a teenager when no one else around me was into it, and it kind of like felt at times like I was like, why am I not listening to chart music and pop music, but I love jazz. But alongside that, I grew up with a lot of reggae and dub in the house, amongst other things, but like reggae and dub is I can listen to that all day. You know what I mean?
Down for some bashment stuff, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like the Caribbean is a host to so many different types of music that a lot of people don't really know about. You know, everyone knows reggae, knows dub, like calypso, maybe soca. There's bashment. There's so much more. But yeah, so going back to the song, it just like, it wasn't actually written like that. I wrote Source for my last EP a couple of years ago, and it had a very different kind of vibe, you know, definitely more like, I guess, jazz based, you could say, but still like kind of a dance element. Like you wanted to hear it in a club, it could have a place there if you wanted, rather than like bebop or swing or something. But basically, yeah, it just kind of like slowly meandered. I was like to the dub that now is the title track of the new album. I think it just was meant to be. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think one day I turned out to either a gig or rehearsal, and I was like, oh, I really want to try Source in a different way. Can we do like a steppers vibe, like a dub vibe kind of thing? Yeah. And like that was it, you know. It sat in this like, you know, beautiful basket of dub, I guess. There's nothing like that sort of vibe, the rhythm, the way it just like, I don't know, it feels like it gives you a hug when I go to, I mean, I haven't been to it for a while, but like when I go to a sound system or carnival or something like that, it keeps you going, it keeps you rocking, even if you're moving like a little bit or a lot. It just, it gets me, man. It's like, it's right here. So
that hug thing is real. Yeah, it feels like you're being like enveloped by the vibe or the bass. And if you ever been to like, you know, a Caribbean party and been close to the Cerro in Vegas, you know what it is to feel it in your chest. And as a, you know, like I'm of Caribbean descent too, so like it feels home. It feels like a return to Source in a lot of ways. So let's talk about that as the song title and the album title. What are you trying to say with that?
Sure. So basically, I think over the last couple of years since I wrote this track, I've been subconsciously thinking about, you know, what ignites my energy, what ignites our energy as a, you know, as lots of different communities And also alongside that, what it means to be grounded. How can you be more grounded? Do you notice when you are feeling less grounded? I think I spent quite a lot of time on the road over the last couple of years, like all the time.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you're popping.
I love it. Yeah, I know, but I love it, and I'm grateful. But when you're away from home and your people for really long extended periods of the time, you kind of just like feel a bit out of it and a bit out of sorts.
Disconnected.
Be like, yeah, very disconnected, and that's been on my mind. And this is kind of, I guess, the concept and the basis behind the whole story of the album. You know, it's about community. It's about being present for yourself, being grounded. What grounds you? How do you get grounded? Is it your community? And also, you know, learning how to be present for yourself so you can be present and look and care after others, you know, care for others. Yeah, that's kind of like a short sort of version of what that tune and in turn what the whole album kind of represents to me, which is, yeah, it's just what's been on my mind when I was writing it and before. I think most musicians and most people actually like feel this, like they feel out of it sometimes when they do feel disconnected from society. And this is those are my thoughts behind it, basically.
So what's your process for reconnecting to source?
For me,
like, how do you do that? Is it via music? Is it via a phone call? Is it meditation? Like, is it being in the studio where you're at right now?
I think it's lots of things. I spent quite a bit of time being like, what is it? You know, I didn't know which one to kind of pursue. Like, should I do yoga every day? Should I try meditation? I know someone who does that. And in the end, I just try and do a lot of those things. So like, is it going for an hour walk in the nearest park? Is it like making sure that I see my friends? Is it like, even if I have a little bit of time coming back from tour, like that energizes me? Is it going to nights that my friends are putting on or whoever's putting on? Is it going to a sound system? Is it getting into the studio? Is it just me sitting at the piano? All of those things make me feel more grounded. I think definitely exercise is a big one over lockdown anyway. I think because I've been like rushing around so much, I didn't really ever give exercise the time of day.
What is a person with like powerful lungs? Like, I've seen you perform, I've seen like Shabaka perform, and I'm always impressed by like your stamina. Like, so what's the exercise like for a person who is like, you're a saxophonist, like a tenor saxophonist and a flautist sometimes, right? Like, what is that like? Yeah.
So, I mean, I used to be super sporty when I was a kid, and I really wish I'd just kept it up. But it was like sports and music for me, and then music just, you know, was my concentration in like my late teens, and so when I got back into exercise, I kind of expected that I would just like
snap back into it.
Just snap back into it. It would be like, oh yeah, you know, I haven't really like regularly exercised for 10 years, but you know, it's fine. Like, it's cool. Occasionally I run or whatever, but I started running and then I mashed up my knee like a month ago. So now I've started roller skating, which is like, I'm really, really enjoying it. Skipping, just anything that like I really like to do cardio. And I've only just started doing like the tiniest bit of like weight training, but that's it. That's me for now. I'm just gonna
I'm so amazed at musicians who are on instruments like the trumpet and the saxophone for their ability to have that, not just dexterity, but stamina on stage. I'm always wondering where it comes from. Obviously it's practice, but I'm always like, do they have some regimen? Do they not smoke weed? Like, what is like, what is it that gets them to this point that they can just blow like that? You know,
I think it's definitely like it's practice. You know, most musicians you see have been practicing since they started their instrument like hours, and then it's also, if you're on the road, like you're gigging every night, you're waking up at I don't even know what time to make it to the next gig. Adrenaline is great, That works.
Mm-hmm.
Adrenaline is a good one to get you through, but it's all the hours that you put in practicing, I guess, to get to it in a state of focus, so that you're there to play. That's it.
You talk about community as a thing that brings you back to source a lot, and one of the things I think is extraordinary is how you've established part of this international community. Like, when I saw you, the first time I ever saw you perform, it was with Mekhi McCraven at Le Poisson Rouge in New York City. And I'm talking to a friend of mine, shout out to Peter Orloff, and he's like, these are the people who are moving jazz forward around the world. Like, this is what you're looking at on stage. It's like, I feel like it was 12 people on stage. He's like, this is that community. So tell me about being a part of that community, coming from a place where, in your youth, being a jazz musician, being into jazz was kind of a rare thing, but then finding your tribe, right? And having your tribe be like global. People in Chicago know about you. People in LA, they want to see you. You're at Winter Jazz Fest. Like, talk about that.
It's, hearing you say all that, I feel really grateful. I'm really lucky to be doing what I'm doing. Like, obviously we're in a weird time at the moment, but if I'm looking forward to the future and I'm looking back at last year, some amazing things are getting booked in, and also like we had an incredible year. I think what's mad for me is that there's so many musicians that I look up to, that I also grew up with, that sense of community. I met a bunch of musicians through Tomorrow's Warriors, that everyone I'm sure knows, like Moses and Femi and Joe, and most of the people I play with, Sheila and Cassie and everyone. So, and
that was a collective you were part of when you were young, right? When you were like a teenager.
So I kind of like 17, and that was, it was so important to have a place that we could go and play and listen to bebop and swing and all the things that we were like getting into, and we're like sharing albums that really set a precedence of like, we have to support each other. We have each other, we've known each other for so long, so long. That it's important. It's important. Like, we'll always be there for each other. I hope we always play together, and all I want to do is see them do incredibly well. I want to see them. I can't wait for all the music that they write forever. Do you know what I mean? I'm excited about that, and to extend that to the international community is like, it's still crazy to me. Like, I look up to Mekhi. I've looked up to Mekhi for a long time. His records, I think, I love the way that he plays. I love the way that he produces his records. So to get that call was like mad. That was mad. It was a beautiful, natural, organic way of us kind of working together more closely. I was on the Universal Beings record, and that led. I think I was literally. We had one studio session in the day, and it was at TRC, and then there was a venue downstairs, and he was like, "Hey, man, do you wanna come and sit on the gig?" And I was like, "Huh, me? Yeah, sure, I'd love to." And then Joe was on that gig, Theon was on that gig. Like, it was like with my people, and also this like external like amazing musical force. It just, those situations, that one situation, we've been lucky enough to like kind of transport that around different places, and maybe it's like my band and someone else's band at the same festival, and we get to hang and we get to like cross kind of do whatever we feel like doing. If we want to sit in on each other's sets and stuff, like, to extend
like that's community. Like that's true community, and like sharing resources and gigging together and collaborating. I feel like a lot of people could learn from what this kind of international jazz community is doing in terms of being a true community and supporting one another. I think about like jazz going from a thing where people are like, oh, jazz is niche and blah blah blah, and jazz, like, people of color don't play jazz anymore, they don't care about it anymore, to understanding what it's been, especially in the past like decade, maybe past 15 years, I'd say, jazz has had this resurgence and this new attention toward it, right? And I'm trying to correlate that with the times. So I wonder, like, from your perspective, what do you attribute this interest in jazz? Like, is it something that's going on in the zeitgeist? Is it that, like people, like what do you attribute it to, basically?
So many things, I think. First of all, it's amazing. I think when I was coming up, I was like, I had very different, I guess, goals, and I didn't, I was just like, oh, I want to play in this club, maybe, once or twice a month, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
And to have that changed and expanded is really, really incredible. I think space has become a really important commodity. Like, these gigs happening in places that aren't just jazz clubs, that are charging, like 50 quid on the door or whatever. That's, got its place. But
yeah,
warehouses are also having their place. Like, pub corners are where I started, where I came up playing standards as well as like covers of stuff, or like trying out my own things. I think having as many grassroots venues as possible is so imperative to encourage younger people that have just started out with their own groups, or they're experimenting with whatever, genre.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's imperative that they have a place to go and play.
It makes it accessible now, because I think,
exactly.
there was this idea that, like you said, like jazz only happened in certain clubs where like young people couldn't go because they couldn't afford to do it, and they had a 5-drink minimum. And, to another point you're making about it becoming more democratic and accessible.
Yeah.
I find that the music, like you make, the music that Makaya makes, there's this groove, there's this danceability to it that makes it, even if you're not like a jazz head, you don't know who Pharoah Sanders is or whatever, right? You could walk in and be like, yo, this is fire. Like, like I could move to it. I think that's a big part of it pulling people in too. Is that intentional on you guys' part?
I think so. I mean, I think what's important to mention is that this generation has grown up with so many different styles of music, like always around, like absorbing into us, there's stuff in the charts that people are digging. There's, your parents' music, especially if they've moved from another country, you've got your traditional culture, music, all of that. And then you have like electronic music in the clubs if you're going out raving. So you've got this like eclectic mix of everything, and naturally what you create is what you've absorbed. That's what I think anyway. The way that I create is like, yes, I want to have the opportunity to have my tune or even play live in a club that is like purely for DJs. I want that.
Yeah.
I want that. I want people to have the option to stand. I want people to have the option to like be like, I can't stay still. Like even if it's a little bop, like movement is so important. Music and movement brings people together. To share the space like that from within the crowd, or from the stage, or hearing one of my tunes or one of my mates' tunes on, is being played out. Like that's kind of, I envision that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I don't see it, like I don't see my music it's not separate. It doesn't have it doesn't, it's not separate. It has a place in multiple places. And I think historically what's happened with jazz is like, it's such a huge genre. Like I will play a Pharoah Sanders tune in a DJ set if I want to, from that, because I've grown up listening to everything. I might go from dub to garage to jungle to whatever, and then land back at some modal jazz. I'm okay with that, because I do that in my like normal listening. So I think that's just happened, like slowly but surely. I think we've got a more varied listening palette, especially DJs, musicians who are DJs now, and also the audience. The audience is also listening to more music. playlist culture has taken over, mixtapes, all of this. Like,
can I shout you out for having a dope playlist? For those who don't know, she has a playlist called Sounds on Spotify that is fire, that speaks to her eclectic tastes. You'll find everything on there. There's like Ari Lennox on there. It's just a dope mix of stuff. And I think you're 100% right. I think, you know, the era that we're in, especially in like the 2000s, we became MP3 people and then playlist people. And then now being eclectic is a valuable thing, right? Like people are a bit more open-minded and willing to experiment. And kind of like that's what Afropunk itself is predicated on like that idea that Black music is not one thing. It's not two things. It's maybe millions of things. It's all the things, right? And there's room for us in all of it. And what I really like about what you and your community of folks are doing is that it almost feels like you're reclaiming jazz, because I feel like jazz had been kind of abstracted from communities. It's been abstracted from like, you know, like even like Black listenership or whatever, being danceable, accessible in that way. Because, you know, like as people of African descent, we connect with stuff through dance a lot, right? And I really feel like you guys brought it back and just made it open again. Like, come through, like listen to this jazz, have a good time. Yeah,
absolutely. I think at the end, like at the source of it basically is it's enjoyment, you know. Like jazz is seeped in so many different feelings and expression. That's it. Improvised music, jazz, if you want to call it that. Whatever you think about it, like it's improvised music. It's a form of expression, the same way dance is a form of expression. You know, they've always been interlinked. Jazz is and was dance music from the beginning.
Facts.
So it's you have to move to it, even if like
it's not just chin stroking music.
It's even you have to be open to it rather than like, okay, I'm here to watch. It's different, you know. It's different.
I'm really excited about your album, your upcoming album. It comes out August 21st.
Yeah.
Right? So Source, August 21st. I want to talk about, like, you know, I've heard Pace. I've heard the title track. Tell us a little bit more about the record.
Okay, so it's 9 tracks. It's an hour long. And there's so many different styles in it, to be honest. I think it's primarily definitely falls into the idiom and under the idiom of jazz. But I had an amazing opportunity to collaborate with a band from Colombia called La Perla. That was an amazing experience. So that track is cumbia inspired. Cumbia being music from style of music from Colombia. And then who else is on the album? So Kenya from Chicago. I met her a couple of years ago, and from the second I heard her sing, honestly, like a couple of years ago, I was like, I want to do something with you one day. And obviously I was still like kind of a bit shy. Even when I'd written this track, I was like, I know I want a Kenya on it. I wonder if she'd be up for it. And yeah, I spoke to her and I was like, hey, how you doing? Like, we'd met before, and we, you know, in Chicago and in London and stuff. So we had that connection. And I was like, look, we've been in the studio and I've written this track. I was wondering if you'd be up for singing on it and maybe writing lyrics. And I was like, no pressure if you don't want to do it. I totally get it. It's cool. And she said yes, and I was like ecstatic. And she came back. She's phenomenal. Please go and check out her stuff. Kenya, based in Chicago. And yeah, basically she came back with, woo! I'm excited to hear it.
I'm excited. I'm excited.
Yeah, I told her what the album was about to me, which I mentioned earlier, and I'm shit at writing lyrics, like terrible, and she just came back with, she just summed everything up so beautifully. Like, I don't think I could have put it into words the way she has. So yeah, I'm excited about that.
No, that's fine. Nah, give her flowers. I'm with that. I'm with that.
Absolutely. What else is in there? There's like some Nyabingi. There's a beautiful jazz ballad.
Okay.
Yeah. It started out with just me and Sam, who plays drums. I was like, Sam, we're gonna do a duo track today. And then it just happened. And then when I did the vocal session with Cassie, Richie, and Sheila, I was like, oh yeah, we just laid down the vocals for Source, and I was like, oh yeah, I really want you guys to sing on this Nyabingi track with just sax and drums. And we harmonized out the melody and everything, and they just like, again, I'm really excited.
What's the name of that song? Because I need to look out for that specific one. I'm into some Nyabingi drumming. Yeah,
that track. That's a good point. Yeah, the Akenya track is called Boundless Beings. And the Nyabingi track is called Stand With Each Other.
Stand With Each Other. Okay. All right, Boundless Beings, Stand With. See, now I got a whole like month to wait for the album, but now I'm like hearing you describe it. I'm very excited to hear it.
Thank you.
You know what I wanted to ask you about? Because like, all right, I know time is short. Our interview's almost done. Being that you balance writing with improvisation so much, and improvisation is so key to jazz, how the hell do your songs come about? Like, I don't, from a perspective of a person who's a non-musician, I'll hear a track and I'm like, how did this even come together? So could you give us a little glimpse? You don't have to give us all a sauce, right? But a little bit of a glimpse into what your creative process is to make these songs.
Yeah. I mean, it does vary, but usually when I'm out and about and stuff, and whatever takes me, I'm just like, I make notes. So I just like sing into my phone, and I'm like, this would be a great bass line over this type of groove, mental note. This is a great melody, and sometimes that's me singing into it. That's, you know, I'm practicing and I'm like, oh, this is really cool, I like it, I'm going to develop it later. And then sometimes I'll just be at the piano and I'm like, oh, I really love these chords, get that down, all of that stuff. And then when time takes me, I develop them, I work on them. I think, you know, someone once told me something very important, that was, you know, composition is a muscle that you have to keep kind of stocked up, I guess. You have to work it, you know.
Yeah.
You have to exercise it. You have to, I think it helps. Some people have creative inspiration like whenever they want. I think sometimes I don't have that, sometimes I do. But yeah, part of writing this album was developing some of the ideas that I had been recording over the 6 months or a year before we
kind of like fleshing out sketches, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's more just so that like you have a starting place, you know, so that you're not just like, I guess it's kind of like writer's block when you're just staring at a blank page, you know. But in this case, it's just like, I used to find it quite difficult to just be like, okay, be creative, write a tune. And I've got better at that now, because I guess it's more practice at the end of the day. It's just like an instrument. It's just a different way. Maybe I listen to, you know, pieces of music and I'm like, oh, I really like that bit. I'm really inspired by that. I wonder what that would sound like that. It's just, yeah. I think also what helped me was being able to daydream, because I had a little bit of breathing space in touring. It's wondering, it's imagining, it's thinking, it's daydreaming. It's someone else taught me that it's really important to have time to daydream, to let those creative things just flow, you know. And also collaboration.
That's true. Yeah.
It's another way of
bouncing ideas off of people. Yeah,
exactly. But for this album, yeah, I think it was just developing ideas that I've been thinking about for a long time, getting them ready for the band, to just so that we could go into the studio and just lay it down. And I have to say, looking back on it, I really enjoy I really enjoyed it, you know. I really loved writing the tunes, changing a few bits. Like, it's the first time I've worked with vocals, so being in the studio and being like, you know, just like feeling a little bit of pressure because like I can't sing, but I also know what I
know
want.
what a melody sounds like. Yeah.
So I was like, okay, and then learning how to like explain everything with my voice as well as the way that I would do it with my instruments, with the band and stuff. So yeah, I was a massive learning curve for me, I think. And also working with Kwes, we co-produced the album. It was such a beautiful experience. Like I knew very much what I wanted in terms of like the sound world and the textures and all of this. Like I'm a lover of like, we just like make the sound as thick as possible, as warm as possible. Like the low end has to like, I want it to rumble your car, you know? If you're listening to Source in your car or wherever you are, I actually want the car to shake. So you should do that if you haven't so far. I
think that's the Caribbean in you, for real. It's like, yeah, we gotta feel this. Yeah,
exactly. I want it to like carry you, you know? I really do.
All right, one very last one. It might be difficult, but how do you know when a composition is finished?
Oof, that is a really good question. I guess. Oh man, what a curveball. I don't know. Sometimes sometimes it feels complete. Like the melody is like, okay, it feels like circular to me. There's no like weird bit hanging off the end, but that doesn't mean like it's
no loose ends.
Like traditional as such. It just means that the melody makes sense to me, which means usually the structure makes sense, the chords, everything is in where it needs to be. But I also try not to be like too authoritarian about it, because when it comes with me from the piano to the studio or the session we're doing, I think I've definitely changed like so many things in the studio.
Just in the midst of it, yeah.
Can we try that? Like for which tune was it? I can't remember. Maybe it was In a Game, one of the tracks on the album. We did like 2 versions and I was like, oh, I can't decide. Like one was a bit slower and like, you know, a bit more chilled in a way, but like very forward driving. And then the next version we did was like, you know, where we're going for it. And in the end I couldn't choose. So I was like, right, we're going to do a take and we're going to do both. We're going to do the chilled version. Then we're going to have like a break, hard stop. And then Sam, I want you to do a fill at this faster tempo, and then we're going to go back into it. So I like to keep things open so that it doesn't kind of make me enter the studio in a closed way to be like, right, we're doing this and that's
too rigid. Yeah, it shouldn't be too rigid. It should be flowing just the way. Yeah,
exactly. I think. Yeah. I don't know. I think that just kind of happens over time. The more you record, the more you go to other people's sessions. Like you just pick up things, you know. I think. I like to write everything out, you know, to save time because time is money. But, you know, like I don't have time sometimes to teach everyone by ear the tunes. If it's easy enough and it's a simple melody, but some of these tunes are like odd structures, odd forms, like bar lengths that are just like, and you have to, you know, it's practice and you have to hear it and you have to know how it fits together. And it's just easier to start from a place where, okay, here's the map and you don't have to use it, but here it is, so that if you need it, it's there. And then when we start touring it, this happened with the last 2 EPs, when we start touring it, it's just repetition, it gets in there. At least the structure, and that leaves more space for us to go to other places in the improvising.
It sounds like a sensibility only developed through a lot of practice and a lot of writing and a lot of working with people. Like then you start to understand. I feel like it's like you can convey it through words, but it's almost like a sixth sense that you get from all this experience that you had that tells you, all right, I can close the loop on this, or this goes this way, or let's try it this way. Yeah,
exactly. And it's like you said, it's trying things out. Some things, you know, maybe it's harmonies, couple tracks Sheila's playing trumpet on, you know, some of them didn't work in practice, and I changed them for the better. But like obviously on the piano it was fine to me, but like putting those 2 instruments together in that way. Just like sometimes things need to be shifted, and I like it. It means it's improving, you know, I think. Hopefully.
Yeah. Hey, one of the reasons I'm asking all these questions is because I always like to listen to stuff with new context that comes from the artist who created it, because then you can hear the various textures and all the things they intended, you know? Like your music, I feel like is very, very layered, it's very rich, you know what I'm saying? So like, I can be engulfed by it, or I can taste the different elements in it. You know what I'm saying? It's almost like, not to mix metaphors, but like say you're having a drink or you're eating something and you taste all the flavors. Now you know what the recipe is, kind of, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's it. That's what I intend. I think at the end of the day, it's music is music, and if you know, sometimes you study it and sometimes it's purely there to be felt by you and listened and whatever, to engulf you, you know. So I think I really enjoy the design of it, I guess, like the composition. But when I'm in the studio, when we're going through it, when we're soloing, like that's it. That's all that's happening. I'm not really actually thinking about like
you're present. You're very present in that moment of creation.
Present. Yeah, it's the same with like on stage when you're doing a gig. Like people often ask me, you know, are you thinking about what you're going to play? And it's like, I actually don't know. Sometimes maybe I'm like, oh, I'd really like to do that. And does that ever happen? No, because you're present in like another kind of sphere, another kind of plane, I guess, of, you know, immediate connection.
Immediate
and
connection.
I think that's what I strive for that. But in practice, it's very different. It's thinking, I want to achieve this today. I want to learn how to do this, or like I'm working on this at the moment and have been for years or 6 months or a week or whatever. So those are two different spaces for me.
The words present in the plane of immediate connection is echoing in my head. That's some deep shit. That sounds like being connected to source.
There you go.
There you go. August 21st, Nubya Garcia's. Damn, you put out 2 EPs. This is the first album.
This is the debut album,
What? This is the first album from Nubya Garcia. August 21st, Source. Everybody tap in. Right now, you can hear the lead single, Source. Well, the second single, the title track, Source, and Pace is out right now from the record, right?
Yes,
yes
it is.
Thank you so much for this conversation. Thank you so much for the insight into what you do. Appreciate you. And everybody support Nubya Garcia. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's been beautiful. Thanks for having me.
All right. Peace. Peace, London.
See you soon. Bye.